Now we've completed our microblading, and we're going to go back and do just a little bit of micro shading. We're going to micro shade the tail and just a little bit in the center lightly. It's very important to not overshade if you have done a complete microblading procedure. So if you have put in all the strokes, you want to shade very lightly, because otherwise it's going to ruin the strokes that you've put in. So lightly, adding a little bit more definition to the tail, and then right at that spine area, you can hear the little tapping sound. We're not pounding on the skin, we're just lightly tapping that color in. And ideally we're tapping between strokes. We don't want to really be tapping heavily over strokes, because that's going to add more color and make them uneven. Just a little bit of overlap isn't going to hurt anything with a small pixel shader.
So nice.
And now you can see just very soft mist of color. If you were going to do more shading, if your client desired more of an ombre look, then you would not fill in as many of your microbladed strokes, so that you would have more area to shade. But again, it's not a matter of shading darkly, it's shading evenly. As that pigment oxidizes, it will get darker, and if you've overshaded, it can really not look good. Hear that tapping? That's what we're looking for. And we're just using a double row, very small pixel shader. Now when you are shading, you do want to have enough pigment on your shader. When you're blading, we want to have a small amount on one side so you can see your blade. Here it's important that you have enough pigment, that you're not just tapping needles into the skin, that you have pigment there that you're pushing into the skin. And now we can mask it. You'll notice we did not go up and ruin the front.
Put some tape 45 in.
And it is, we do suggest that you add a little bit of secondary if you are going to go back and do some shading, because keep in mind the skin has already been worked on quite a bit, and now if we're going to do shading, that can be a little uncomfortable without some additional numbing.
Stretching tight is a must.
Yes, in fact, if you're not stretching tight enough, it is more uncomfortable. for your client. As well, you do not get the pigment implantation that you're looking for. So we can't emphasize enough how important it is to learn to stretch properly and to keep that stretch tight as you work. Some of you might even need to do hand exercises to be able to stretch tight enough.
That's it. Mask her. And we will do final review.
So now what we've done is put on some Tag 45 as a sealant. And you can see how beautiful these brows have turned out. We're going to wipe the excess off.
You can see the shading, even depth.
Just gives more dimension to the brow.
Not too much, but a little bit more dimension.
It's going to heal as just a really light, cloudy haze, and the strokes will still be visible. Again, this was a light to medium brown with some gold added.
I did her review.
And now she can have a look.
I love them. Thank you.
They're beautiful
Love.
on you.
Look at that.
Yeah, it really looks
So
nice.
pretty.
And again, that little white ring around it is just the anesthetic. That will disappear very quickly.
So let's do a thorough review of her brows before we do aftercare. Okay. Can you zoom in for me? See, this is a so basically each stroke is about 1 millimeter apart.
And you can also notice that the color is filled evenly. So she should have good retention.
And at this time, we're gonna have her sit up and review and communicate the aftercare. Let's talk about her aftercare now.
Do aftercare right now? Okay. Aftercare is very important to the success of the whole process of microblading and microshading. Aftercare is very important to the success of the microblading or microshading treatment. And so you want to have aftercare kit that you can send home with your client, as well as written instructions too. Some people do message the instructions as an additional way to have the client really understand them. What we have here, and so you know, there are many ways of doing aftercare. There's many opinions on dry heal versus wet heal. This is just one of them. So it doesn't mean that the others are wrong. It just means it's another way of doing it. But what we're going to suggest today is we have a little wipe inside of this packet that we're going to have our client wipe the brow with every hour for about 3 to 5 hours before they go to bed. And we're doing this procedure early in the day, so definitely she'll finish way before bedtime. But what that does is it removes any excess lymph, any excess little pinpoint bleeding, and helps prevent a scab. Definitely the brows will get dry and flaky, but a scab is the enemy of pigment retention, those thick, heavy scabs. And the only way to truly prevent that is to wipe off that excess lymph and fluid that is secreted in the hours after the procedure. So this particular wipe is quite large. It can be wiped, folded up, put back in the packet. In an hour or so, a clean area can be used. And again, 3 to 5 times is ideal. We also have a bar of dial soap in here for our client to go ahead and tomorrow they can begin cleansing gently over the brows once a day. And we have an Aftercare ointment that can be used. Less is more, but definitely the ointment will help to protect that open skin initially. It is going to have a semi-matte look, so it's aesthetically pleasing. It also helps with any itching or discomfort that client has. Now, if they're excessively oily, which our client today is not, we would have them avoid the ointment unless they're really experiencing itchy issues. Or if they have large flakes that are lifting off the brow and they need to kind of smooth those out. We're also going to have additional guidelines for them on the written instructions, and it's important that they keep their brows dry other than during the cleansing process as much as possible in those first few days, particularly those first 5 days when that scab, that light flakiness is still there. Please make sure that you're not only expressing this information to your client verbally, but you are giving them the handout as well, and certainly calling in a day or so to follow up to see how they're doing.